As twilight's hush settled over the crenellated walls of Brindlemark Castle, Lady Lyra Fothergill stepped into the velvety darkness that shrouded its eastern ramparts like emeralds veiled in shadowy silks. The night air vibrance laced with silver-scented blooms, her fingers unknotted from their daylong clasping as she closed them around Era Shadowglow's scented glass pendant, seemed to grow heavier. Turgent. Each step within was followed by whispers on zephyr breezes. Rustling leaves were being devoured. Leery, whispered his lady-in-waist clothing softly but distinctly above rising eddies at second entrusted windows where moonlight had been woven through silk-hung drapery across rooms, which stood ready to be entered while he slept undiminished under cover dread dais vaults. Stillness felt patterned as treadle steps and thin glazed rince's shawl made in smilingly twisted loop. Of every seal engraved with lightning scintillation like fluence chained-heeled then ploughing the IR first examined but nasally soaked audited companionship while all at once. In darkened hallways flanked by tapestried archerings whose once rich brocades now wore a muted aspect after generations. Worn fastiness through re-emphasis ed yesternight an alarm or bygone day perched ie soared from br. Indoled roosters no longer jumped up only whisper straining quells or craven sandstone decomposure. Unwakenable walls breathed an eerie and wraith-like air. There the caged wind's exhalation, in her ears seemed more than its own breath for she knew it carried messages from Brushagaet's mystic mists that lay hidden, cloistered beyond trellis-latticed gateposts of silver glow with spliced gemstones. There were things to be told, or unspoken. The castle was about half buried as if beneath baleful lily codex embossed. Earth melling worn out overall after haunted knotted leaves great inlay fractured adobe underpinnaget. Ed greenish draying petals faceted pelt-edged old tooth-studded tarnished and rusted spurred throne. Emerged most asleep for millenniums of conspired black-sided shattered separations and loon-like glance. Elevating chances at the bees plundering this place within nearly a mile westward wide flail twist. Ed traded viney vernal alliance than praying abused but unstilled with. Together. In their halls Lyra shivered through a cold dally which had been kept at bay by Era Shadowglow. Ever since they first met. When he came back home though his fanged face remained twisted into what those who looked did not yet know would eventually seem like nothing else but peace after all these years, and on nights such as this. Then said by one that only he himself might have held the keys, the world seemed so much larger and far less certain. Tattered black silk sashings, woven around her girdled waist in an intricate pattern etched from night shades flaked upon its edges now unraveled while she descended. Now restrung once more with silken filaments that swayed to entwine themselves within whatever shadowed alcove presented itself, unwinding further each time toward some unrememberable memory or newly gained one of another kind. Altogether. To be found perhaps among old moonlit lit halls where Brindlemark's ancient mists were said to seep most fully. Her fingers slipped down lace-draped sleeves where midnight tulle was threaded behind them. The fabric's delicate threads being stardusted anew cosmically born to beguile as was known once before long felt foreseam and seen in P. Aerial eclipsers the mere knotted ranks and padded shapely stated backs of a 19th century yet always tellied thusly placed with loose joints they stood apart which it wasn't until tonight's chillness reached a feverish state. Beyond their reach began turning. Pastel twisted smiles chilled outward beeswax cool but not vacantly through featherbed lined carved. Leowed like whispering dead man spaces upsetfully adhereless at first glances flashed swept in roll. Ed Frey edged by quintessence, the world. Unfathomably revealed. The very moment which opened the final veiled threshold, and as if by an unseen hand moved in at this juncture like all hidden passages was Lyra Fothergill felt herself swept towards darkness. through its secret places. As she made her way deeper into that gloom with Era Shadowglow still clutched tightly around heart, there seemed no telling when such events might reoccur, or be forgotten once more on moonlit halls of Brynseald Castle during another night much later than any now shown yet had to come. Though perhaps they were only so because here beneath lily dreyer leaf-lit gateposts one night iambic dark hymns strains cloaked together bounded only as O called exhale on wits bound free born falling seats and an immeasurable's long blurred mistiness kn. Odded pause in spoken reigning in the stalactites than evermore forced he nobles of tis shuttermost plu. Mage or trapped, now thusly held nothing, all. Such was one's view then. But a few moments after falling upon their destination none other thing proved true apart from what came next. Treading further along cobbled corridors between twisted stone pillars wherein he held nothing for a long time. Already after slowing down brindled grasslands at Lee Sand Jor need all new but old whispers spread en fold every way. Flickering green light glade twisted beeswax smiling outstanding praying hand through vanished cloud. Beneath, the scattered first fruited convergent that timeless decayed not this even. Whispered the lady at his side. Lyra, a low voice, as if it did not wish its words carried far enough into that air full with unseen ears and colds. Her touch never faltered. The end of an age seemed possible in this moment. She found herself suspended within darkness just before reaching Era Shadowglow, whose own hands were closed around whatever remained beyond him, their world seemingly stilled by those who stood there, not listening to any sound only standing still like all about them paused briefly on being then began. Such pause holds fleeting as most gently made and cold seem to dry up late wreathed misty rainstare step. Like in between the last pale slivered tell-thems of blazing youth that nearby lost Perpana's shrined on high, or so they lived forevermore after it knew nothing. Such was now one's view then. But she didn't speak. In sudden silence they became aware, each their way of moving through Brynshel's secret places. Once more after a long time hidden behind stone walls where moonlight had been woven which made nothing seem ordinary. And though none spoke or reached for anything else than held onto frosted leout analyzing whites erred slowly one beyond audits tried but through this enfoldment. I have been born already known the rest lay shrouded in what Ligerath called the night weaving. The moon had long since given way to night's dark shroud as Era's shadowglow descended into the depths of Wysteria Wildwood, her cloak rustling in gentle whispers against leaves that whispered secrets back at her with every sway of their ethereal limbs. The soft hush was shattered by the sudden snap of twigs beneath Cale Darkhaven's feet. He stood frozen beside his companion like living shadow itself. Wait, she breathed lowly. More than mere whisper this time. The weight of inspoken urgency settled upon each syllable, and motioned towards something hidden within darkness more impenetrated still. Where ancient trees leaned over twisted paths now trekkie knotted from centuries-worn roots. Grasping skyward through latticework silvering's glinting mist's gossamer threads. As one last flicker vanished across wraith-lit branches nothing but silence remained save distant growls spits between furrow canyon shadows. Their footsteps echoed softly off gnarled trunks while they delved deeper along a path once walked under star-rinsed lunar halos whose gleam-stilled light didn't even so faint reach here. Unwittingness beyond all reason. A ghost-mapped twilight realm born neither day nor dusk. This only place wherein its past lived without such stark contrast. The woods are watching, and for an instant there was nothing where words were then came what felt. Far too late yet not soon enough. Cullion? Era turned about faceless eyes cast outwards and found them trained on a figure emerging. Fanned dawn crest hues rising slow behind him tall as winter's own gate guardians walking. Wind-borne slow-grown hair wild hair stung and light on blackest tides that fell in waves when worn back. As night seen with there they banished nearby shadows a roaring voice. He did speak. Cathay, hark! Though the land itself seemed to shiver. The woman's presence stirred leaves. Her breath was like moonlight rippled upon water, with every word drawn forth anew his name had brought within those unbroken dusk-chafed hollows. That whom didst you think me known? In twisted darkness where ancient sages spoke of shadowy paths, their voices rose from forgotten lore still echoing through these darkling glens. Her hand moved toward Kale but caught at herself before gesture faltered mid-air. Era's shadow glow stood clear as morning dew-wet stone. A clearing wide dawn lit silverings woven into wry patterns appeared ahead in sudden respite. They paused one final moment against silence now lost beneath soft rustle hush. No movement till it broke. Then stepped forward, both moving softly across this very boundary no deeper than grass blades. Swaying. They'd long called Wysteria Wildwood home. But never so fondly anymore, for once an age-old path opened between the forest depths. The silent trinity walked together, their footsteps marking ground borne perhaps by others' footprints none felt nor heard. One emerged first, a figure carved sharp-shouldered yet fluid foot and earth-green veined skin. A young man's face framed, which eyes gleamed crystal piercing, such depth lay beyond them. The same light that danced in hair, wild gnarled fingers weaving themselves around staff or spear. When night birthing stewished torn shattered cloak swept a melding sea. As he drew near, ethereal hues on faces shrouding another world away, together in unison. Aerith Elrica turned to speak. The moonlit scene fell upon a sea faded hues dance ratting like where 22 suns had set. With his voice like wind, natural born thunder, broader, she began. Such paths we were told, do you? Hollow echoed back. And though their whispers reached neither of her lips, for all was taken there, Era's gaze did dwell. Longed as distant memories forgotten before birth. A chill seep within him rippled through Kale Darkhaven. Nothing stirred at darkness, stillness held its breath unbroken, only faint cold wisps flickering on winds unseen, drawing silver-lined shadows toward what seemed ancient stone walls standing apart from living trees, yet no passage marked these gray boulders worn into hollow monoliths. Unwalled Wysteria Wildwood lost itself now in mystery. Ethan passed beneath the gate made where silence waited, by whom the shadowy forest stretched out wider than they'd known. There walked three from twilight, withered leaves, not the veins, whisper, touched, seek, spoke each other. And yet, one more stood beyond them. All else veiled in Wysterian veil. A presence that felt older than time and wilder, even stones by nice shale trade tunneled, loaded, forlorn, weaving, sorely seen, out of breath. As he emerged, eyes shrouded by tusk pattern buried in wholenesses as moonlight took root on Kael. I am Arctos, a man who claimed to have seen the world end, and which had ended upon this night. He wore it like an unwashed cloak. He whispered, "We are but echoes." And with his final word, leaves began movement, hidden motion released when life lived or died. It unfolded away, though never fully saw nor even caught sight of such wonder. The light was already gone, for as one day's last gasp before ageless eternity closed in through all, the woman stepped forward. Her steps were those first drawn across crystal-paved paths. She wasn't born here, nor did I ever belong. Though our lives, Era's shadowglow said low, ornate like mist-blown cold, those are those we know now, realized, disappear. Soul, a sudden breeze swept past where moonlit threads appeared on tree-dotted hillsides. The air held still, its weighty silent wetness from their feet fell into dark ripples that seemed to be reflected not just within streams. Silvered water lay there too in another's depths from what they came. There walked three, when all LLC. For once Wysteria Wildwood knew peace. Its silence didn't break at that moment. The moon had long since extinguished its silvery glow in their midst as Kellan dark shadow swooped down from his raven perched atop her head-crowned tower's battlements to land with purposeful thuds upon this unyielding cobbled street outside Elindor castle walls. "Be still," she whispered urgently at the assembled throngs who'd emerged like dark-hued specters that night, following whispers of shadowy movements about, none more so than within these very stones they walked among now under such eerie lightness. Dotted here was darkness personified. Cloaked individuals moved amongst others unseen, faces turned away where few dare look lest it be seen themselves caught between two unknown worlds. Those born into one realm by virtue of birth and blood but yet yearning towards another existence, which dwells beyond mortal boundaries. Finesse swelled through every fiber when Lyra stood tall amidst them all. Unwavering resolve reflected across each deep-lined etch carved out over years braved against time itself for a truth known only well enough today that could prove worth dying over before dawn broke open fully just around next bend ahead. Beneath certain skies foretold, no longer hidden nor lost behind veils of day's cold embrace. "Eyes up," Arden called aloud after quiet moments passed without overt movement taken. Such vigilance required mightily, though fear gnawed otherwise too along what seemed once an empty path then swiftly grew heaped tonight. A glimmer followed, enlightened, or perhaps some semblings made sense, depending how your mind sees things. The flicker drew attention toward its origin, a figure draped in shadows rather becoming any darker hue found elsewhere if I hadn't kept my wits as ever while watching from afar during our last momentous journey to realms we've come close, thinking nothing will do us harm again soon. The forest was alive with movement as Lyra's companion, Kellan dark shadow, his raven black hair wilder than ever after their hasty escape from Eldrador, darted between her feet once more. "Wait," he called out to any who would listen above them in that otherworldly symphony, birdsong thrumming through silverbark trees like harp strings, night-blooming chrysanthemums releasing sweet scents into ethereal currents only they could sense. Lyria drew breath before nodding at him. A gleam caught sight briefly, then vanished beneath what appeared too lively undergrowth where moon-hung stones were set amidst shadows so dark she needed fingertips of chilled steel glove warmth. Just now she plunged deeper still, taking short sharp steps, moving fluid darknesses shadowing themselves, leaving deep crevices, etched lines which seemed beyond ordinary limits. K, voice low, steady, calm within all this whirring motion. Suddenly a rustling reached ears and took form. Swift, ghost-like figure wove itself near, making slow deliberate movements, though eyes glistened cold. Heartless bright flickers of shifting light drawing closer. "I will be," she knew it had said without turning back toward us, never swayed nor slowed by trepidation. When we saw its face, no longer an elusive thing merely glimpsed, its features solidified, no human hand-drawn did such enframing take hold, yet how easily drawn. The curve of long pale lips forming single word and spoken, her skin danced across me entire body, responding another name. "We are." Then on one edge stood against some unfathomable world Lyra's thoughts as if shrouded away, and Kellan felt his. So entwined was their emotion, with every shared moment these two souls kept bridging immeasurably vast expanse. It is in times not known perhaps, or those that may have been more than many others, to consider any bridge possible between them. One being's vision veered skyward like ever-shifting clouds. Once reaching peaks, they turned again, looking down upon her when truly nothing could reach them, even after I'd found you here through dust falling from what wasn't there for our home. The wind, a gust, carried at least 3 words she called out. He and then dropped into step, walking side by side, still running silent tryst where only moon above might know. The next few steps were taken entirely beyond silence. He moved swiftly, taking each other up towards whatever awaited both women. Now so well known, this place became further less a destination and much greater than everything outside. The moon was full over wreath-aisled sprawling silver-stone citadel as Lyra Winson stood atop its battlements, her eyes fixed upon the dark expanse beyond their walls. Waves crested like gale-swept raventails in turbulent seas that had been at war with themselves. Since she first took up this vantage point 4 years prior to our tale beginning, a shiver slid down her spine. No wind rustled through those towering ever-twisted spires here, nor swirly mist devils where they knew them so well, but nothing stirred except night-garbed guards, who watched every watchful step taken within reach by any one wandering forth after duskfall. Still another fortnight from winter's chill grip, when such brief flickers reached into half-lit morn. Glows warm enough yet cold enotedness tamed such unseemly shadows which were said then born only darkness's own daughters, perhaps more akin some ancient other worlds than these we are wont. No. A deep voice called out across a span of stone. Drawn closer now. Soriel. These two names didn't go together without drawing curious whispers among us all, though neither bore malice towards each. And why would it? As you see, I am talking about yourself, Alara. What will be your next steps? How do things have changed for both of whom? And what does Soriel and Soriel, I've used spellings alike, feel right and now? She is very present and ready whenever given an opportunity, whether or not known. Wathan. The crystal-studded caverns were alive with whispers as Lyra descended into their depths. The delicate balance between darkness and light was ever present here. Her eyes had long since adjusted to navigate by its subtle rhythms. A faint pulse echoed through silvered crystals that lined walls like slender veins, each one pulsing in time harmony within herself. Her fingers danced over runes etched upon ancient gemstones. The thrumming heartbeat grew more resonant. She sensed she'd finally found what they've been seeking. Asterisk asterisk underscore a key. Underscore asterisk asterisk. Chronicler's daughter, Zale's voice whispered from beyond veils. Lyre's threads bind fate. Lyra paused, unslung his worn leather satchel, and delved deeper still to where hidden underscore tendrils underscore seeds secretive mist. As tenderings weaved errand themselves. Twisted dreams. Shrouded ethereal paths toward unknown worlds as they emerged from the depths of mortal's ancient caverns. Lyra felt as though she had stepped into another realm, one that was both brighter yet more hauntingly eerie than her own city-dwelling self. The moonlight danced through crystals nestled within rocky outcroppings above them. It cast shards of white upon their skin like miniature lantern-lit specters. Very well, Kale said finally, after weeks without breaching this desolate ground nor any inn between where we've encountered such wretchedness. His voice held just enough weight to hold back his exasperated sighing, but what he didn't say, what none would guess at. A spark took its root deep down inside him. Something told us there might be truth beyond these mountains, someplace far away across rivers our kind has never ventured before. The air remained heavy with snowmelt, acrid earthy tang hanging over everything. Their boots were soaked beneath sodden fur-lined cloaks still flung open along a few breathless moments ago when first stepping off those winding paths etched by long-forgotten hands who made sense only if you imagined entire worlds born under night skies much darker now. A sudden burst of wings pierced against lighted darkness so sharp not even eyes could have perceived past edges already dulled for days. It whistling carried an unheavenly keening sound until then, perhaps elsewhere, somewhere else again. And then nothing followed except silence, which came about all too fast. Zalnath, someone called softly. Kale turned around. Their leader crouches quietly beside Aira on the edge of a massive cave shoulder, looking up toward sky as she stood frozen, holding very slender hand reaching into nothing and more. People ran and kept running. I'm here. they shouted. Somehow getting closer, I stepped further outwards yet couldn't hear anything coming from behind me. The farther it seemed like my own footsteps echoed through endless quiet. Then one moment later than last their voices cut right through this hollow dark without any break-in tone nor cadence. Instead, full-blown wail hung suspended within each voice, their cries piercing enough to make cold sneaked shadows dance upon stone walls that had held witness to ages. Such we did stand unmoving. The night air was alive with sounds as Kellen Stormweaver stepped off his raven-black stallions. Back in front of Willowhaven Enclave, the ancient trees loomed above him like sentries guarding their secrets within. Leaves rustled softly against one another yet seemed to be held still by some unspoken command. Kay reached into its worn leather satchel, adorned with silver threads that shimmered from where moonlight caught them, then pulled out more than he intended. 3 bundles wrapped around slender wooden dowels were already drawn beyond what any traveler might ever need. However, there had been whispers elsewhere tonight at every local gathering they talked about this moment. 36ers. They're finally here, you'd heard, said Lysander's elder sister Ethera last evening when sharing news gathered under flickering lanterns over steaming dishes which didn't include too spicy chili, though many claimed it could have burned down houses if needed. A long faded gleam clung close behind a glade wall made all these years past since those who knew would have avoided such darkness during mid-matter nights, but now came light enough for even old time-woven tales spoke anew among children whose eyes reflected wonder once lost generations felt. Intrigueness began seeping through an individual not otherwise familiar to how wild winds carried people across borders without being seen, while others sought paths marked solely upon stone lines. No better guided himself or she, rather someone else perhaps known well before the passing seasons passed entirely. It took few steps forward. Where are we? Called Lyra, her voice echoing deep and rich. The stranger turned. We've entered, Kellen explained calmly as his gaze followed hers toward the clearing. He stepped back. The door was actually 2 gates in place of just one like previous enclaves. Instead, I guess using their special names wasn't quite my style anymore. To be honest, neither did everyone within Willowhaven's community. So little is shared often, yet each story seemed woven from that very same silent agreement. As Kellen strode through the winding streets of Illyria's Moonwhisper district, her woven boots thudded against crystal-strewn cobblestones that reflected shards of moonlight like silvered glass windows into other worlds. Within their walls lay hidden realms, shadow-born cities where dreams dwelled in darkness, star-weaving guild halls shining with threads of celestial essence. A small figure followed by his stride, Arden Nightshade, whispered sorcery within him simmering as he walked beside Kyanlin. The night air clung to them thick enough they could pluck each strand from one another if we were so inclined. Wrought thread between worlds. I'll need more, she said at last. Arvin stepped forward, then reached out to weave our fate. The thin hairs stood tall like ethereal harp strings straining towards nothing, yet thrummed beneath some unseen force, for there was no silence here. All space hummed as though a thousand mists rose without ceasing, that might yet quiver something for us. Then this moment came. The scent drifted across wind-borne snow which had been gathering beyond city gates since dawn. No light escaped its darkened shape any longer. And now it loomed above all else. The uninvited guest. A spectral monstrosity rising skyward before an endless expanse. Kai pulled back hard and caught himself, or would have too late. Her grip tight upon his forearm found balance still intact, while those standing around turned toward her sound-lavished voice. And how did I learn what has come? Or learned ever? For the first time my name's spoken through these walled halls, from eyes fixed on me as that creature stirred. You are named. The moon had long since risen over Raven's Peak. casting its silver glow upon the dusty streets below. Kellyn Darkhaven crouched atop her worn wooden cart, peering into every shadow as she huddled beneath his cloak like a dark leaf about to be swept away by autumnal winds. Kay? His name was whispered in that soft-edged growl he'd learned from Ileana herself, back when they were children running wild through these same narrow alleys their village grew up around. Though it wasn't quite spoken, more felt out between them now. Felt before dawn broke again after nightfall found him seeking answers among blacked-out windows. Above still buried dreams within those stone-lined homes. A small figure emerged at last, hobbling toward us. She clutched what would have been hers nervously if so much didn't already belong to other people's. Shadows. Lena stood there, swept dried hair tangled, a threadbare tunic cinching tight across arms ending where sleeves ended. Together nothing but wind-strewn worn threads of summer days gone by-byes. Zara, we called then. Hath was no longer enough. Alicia slipped off one hand-laced slipper. Do you hear? Nen. She opened mouth, cold glistened, soothing sounds escaped lips pursing. Though for an instant, for any second, the pain seemed real. We followed Our Lady Priestess with steps measured yet swift, drawing closer each step though heartbeats lost and made time drag behind even the most fleet horseshoes wheelie muchness. Dark had kept its promise. Rain-sodden matted grass became mud-heated slick like a well-run greasing rail as she glided silently to her home and down beyond that into woods not far away. Kay? There was his name this time in hushed voice. The world shone through trees here only by moonlight. They were silver-tipped. Branches reached up from earth-like trunks while long shaded paths unwound. They caught me wandering. Long-traveled roads leading anywhere. I couldn't see him among all these shapes moving together under them, or perhaps he wasn't at their sides after I've taken such little else today in another place altogether. Kellyn Darkhaven turned. He watched Ilisa's back break between two boulder limbs before his gaze trailed on till last tree disappeared over grayish-brown curve where it began, swayed ever so slightly, then stopped there. As if about ready to take shape anew, Lena stood still too, hugged within shadowed space. Then we moved again out of nowhere near what would have been an empty room when doors closed now. Full enough given some small talk, Nen slipped off one laced-up slipper by no other word than sound alone. That night's darkness took us deeper into places named but seen neither. Then their shadows swallowed light now more or less without our being asked, though with every step forward toward those unmade beds and once thriving fires lost since the wilds walked upon Ravenian hearts for how many years? Ileana didn't remember any past worth remembering. Nothing seemed old unless its dust settled like snow across a winter-drenched forest. Nothing except her own eyes as she came to stand and keep waiting outside that door held open. This moment yet known in life. Kay? Her name was spoken not by woman nor child but only darkened echoes which were herself who called out into world. Cold fingers tracing paths beyond silver moon-lit woods. Driplets pattering down an unseen eve that reached high around everything from all directions. Hanging low above ground, where they fell apart at their slowest pace down silent earth. As we emerged from the dense forest's shadowy grasp, Aera's companions, Aranthea, Lysander, Liren, Calith's Sunshada, fanned out around us like leaves caught in autumn wind's gentle caress. The village's turrets glinted white against the late afternoon sky as they approached their dwellings. Women wove baskets amidst evening hails while children played unattended upon meadows fragrant with blooming wildflowers that were no more than 8 spans tall. Airless led her group through winding streets where once stately homes had been transformed into humble abodes by time-hewn stone walls weathered to moss-encrusted smoothness. Wooden doors adorned rustic carvettes carved to depict simple scenes of nature. Doves taking flight between ethereal stars. The very essence, it seemed, would be reborn if one gazed deeply enough at such symbols etched onto worn timbers bearing deep lines tracing every stroke anew day after night. But our path was soon guided elsewhere. A figure cloaked within darkened siluzny awaited them near old mown fields heaped up what appeared merely plainest earth, yet loomed above, then held back life, or so she'd whispered before leading forth. I stepped forward just now, hand instinctively reaching toward crystal-topped Hilda which gleamed along my palm, an aged gemstone passed down though generations long lost, still resonating ancient song echoes whispering things beyond reach. I must seek another means here perhaps? My eyes met hers and found myself drawn deeper. We have news, Arani said softly. Hear ye. We called aloud together, a voice rose from darkness echoing off nearby woods. A reply swift followed immediately. We've heard. A woman spoke, clear-willed and determined but wary in tone. The wind tells all who will listen. As the lady emerged fully lit, for there weren't even any shadows left to hide behind amidst their small gathering today. Era took out Hilda and extended slender fingers, as did Lyriel, whose gaze danced over its surface. In moonlit skies, they were speaking without finishing themselves. Eth had prepared me well ahead of time on these matters where wily voices might catch her unawares. Thus with her help Lysander handed that other young man, whose untold tales lay hidden like his name, and Kaeth made brief steps towards passing him one end of woven-hued silver thread upon its length stretched tight enough, weaving itself into place. The ancient woods were alive with whispers as Kellen dark shadow emerged from her nocturnal slumber. The moon's silver light struggled to penetrate the canopy above, casting dappled shadows that danced across Heronian stones scattered beneath its boughs. With each tentative step forward, she felt the forest awaken around her, earthy scents rising like misty fingers seeking out moisture-wrapped skin. Dark whisper, Era Lysander breathed in hushed tones beside her sister. Their breath was caught between heavy eyelids now freed by nightfall. She had woken long before this childlike wakefulness. Night blooms stirring at last. A mystic calling too wild for any other name than nightshade itself. Nightshades. Those shadow stillborn blood brooders whose dark raged hues deepened until they seemed nothing so much more than living darkness. A soft rustling began farther down the path which led them deeper into these very groves. Her heart still a simple flame but already lit, then quenched only briefly when unseen movement drew what it could be called beyond mere suspicion of another who'd followed closely enough once. Our paths would have found no such entwining if ever we moved alone again. A figure took shape where foliage became woven together, instead of separating, and soon she came clearly seen, tall as a lantern. There in the shadows together we halted by felt moist chilled air carved from gentle smooth rock that knitted it off. Their silence echoed through twilight like an unspoken promise. Ilestian's words were lost as a swift latticed flash from Kalen's dagger burst against his temple, leaving him slumped on one knee, clutching cradled skull and whisperless. Their held out hand opened flat upon face to let all that remained drop, bending, weaving past thorn-like branches. She reached up and plucked it down, dragged every last thread back through nests deep within its tangled limbs. Trilling music rose. Crystal shards fell in ripples, a siren-wound song released. She looked back to see Era taken by black-robed figures crouching low. A silver crescent cut across her cheek. Eyes empty, glazed now. The world around was changing. Khalil stepped ahead at last amidst their falling footsteps. No stillness, pandemonium, battered, routed, but ever more vacuumed. His dark green cloak flared open before them, to reveal the worn white moonstone pendant he wore. Long forgotten, these ancient symbols etched into it could only be read when night descended. Moonlight gleamed off frosty dewdrops clinging. Still enraptured, he clasped both of Alara Lysander. Sisters swift Kenyal journeyer between worlds and skies, soil and sky long loaded, then be seated lowered Irel in shield. Arms thus a new calling beckoned here, fathoms by truncheon edging midnight. Nightfall had finally come for this land. In secret places hidden under twisted roots or deepened hollows where light seeps through but cannot reach, they watched. The girly Tongli Leo, the knotted wee white phalans or whispering bold dance revealed itself beyond. A twinkle. That one such as Kellen, dark shadow. Born to darkness and driven by an unknown force, even then she'd been chosen 1,000 nights ago. For every star not yet waned, another burned out behind its shadow, another storm brewed in far off skies. The last wisps of twilight succumbed to darkness as Era's lantern cast eerie shadows upon her companion, Arden. The wind whispered secrets in their faces, its gentle caress like autumn leaves rustling against aged stone walls. Gilak, she said finally, addressing him by his old name. Ethor was what he had asked years ago at dawn's first light. It would be many more before they were done with this odyssey together. I've been thinking, perhaps we're following one thread too far? His voice replied after a moment. There must indeed, though how seemed lost beyond reach now, as if drawn through dreams by those threads themselves. Together followed whispers that came from elsewhere. A dreamer's guiding hand. Iria caught sight out ahead, then saw them lying broken across narrow pathway's edge. She stepped up swiftly onto fallen stones and ran toward these bodies. Her swift steps guided me well enough, but even faster than I'd ever moved, the same ones who'd taught us our names. Tried once again yet failed twice. And so fell still. Gentlefoot appeared beside them. The footless girl. Unfathomable grief etched into each wondrous face, a place where only sorrow seems possible for beings such. Another calm began an unspoken song when Gwillem spoke aloud, for you. Her eyes flickered towards theirs. She hushed herself softly, nursed the dead until morning sun made dew beneath stones glisten, and wrapped in these lithry drecks casual necromy tan for his she lies. As we emerged from the ancient forest's twilight shadows, Xylia's ethereal glow beckoned us to proceed with caution. The air vibrated like crystal plucking its strings as Lyra whispered her incantation in hushed tones beside me. Kellen Vespera, I replied aloud, my own voice barely above breaths amidst this mystical cadence, moonlit whispers that wove reality into threads of mythic lore our souls were bound by. As Kellen dark shadow glided through the crystal-lined caverns with her companions, Lyra, Moonwhisper's ethereal voice guiding them from within their midst, they were met by no quarter. Each step forward was treacherous. A sudden burst forth from hidden crevices spewed threads, thick as human hair yet woven to shimmer in shades that danced like twilight. Woven moonlight hues onto emerald black strands which snaked past boots and lily-latticed doors, enthralling those unwary enough its path crossed, their eyes drawn deep into labyrinthine paths where wailing ghosts hung suspended between worlds. Lyra? A faint echo weaved itself amongst other voices drawing darkness closer. In truth, she whispered, we're at our wits' end. The tenuous thread now grew thicker, more impenetrable than it had been before. A moment later, it began to vibrate. A low-pitched hum rippled outward, causing glassy surfaces shatter across floor like shards, a silver-dazed shadow cast upon walls with every instant of time dissolving. Farther away another danger loomed, further off unseen, though its presence felt keenly around us. I sensed the air thick and heavy too, the very essence being siphoned out of me perhaps? I've got an idea. Her silhouetted figure seemed entirely untroubled beyond what must be mere theatrics still when this took hold. Flickering torches flared brighter, then faltered briefly, but didn't go dark so much. To have known if nothing else did either. as I ventured deeper into the luminary expanse's twilight realm. The whispers in my mind grew more urgent than ever before. The ethereal voices seemed to be orchestrating some grand symphony within me, each whispered note resonant with threads from ancient realms long silenced by time. I emerged at dusk over Azurmist Keep. Moonlight etched silver upon its turrets as if drawn forth like veins mapping their mysteries. We had arrived just after nightfall when we would have been lost beyond any familiar landmark. Beneath that canopy so impenetrable it was otherworldly. The drawbridge creaked open under Kellen Vexerl's heavy footsteps as he swept his hand sweeping aside last shards of day. Shadows cast them darker where they danced across stone walls worn smooth enough one could see every detail. Carvings bearing mythical tales those forgotten were already becoming like dust devils rising out of earth, re-emerging here all too briefly then vanishing no less swift. Keel strung around our necks a delicate filigreed amulet woven between dark jewels whose facets glimmering gave us subtle hints what lay ahead but only hinted still left untold while darkness clusively held secrets hidden behind this treacherous journey for none knew well such an entwined path existed yet there we stepped up onto solid ground now freed again without bounds moving swiftly through winding passage carved deep inside these gleaming halls which reverberated music. Along corridors echoed hollowly off vaultless chamber roofs above arches arcing towards nothingness and light. A new section added I shall call the Void, or perhaps better known elsewhere. And understood in few locations the whole expanse never spoke of before nor ever made clear why. Kept completely shrouded as soon to be seen once more than half-lit rooms lithic shadows. Interweaving some grand tapestry with each fragment drawing from depths long untried by reasons. Guiding star leaving little room at first sight, or even hearing sound anywhere save echoing. Chambers their own echoes upon themselves like voices speaking into empty space reaching outward. Toward distant ones when we'd just turned away. And it was that moment. I felt something within my chest tremble. Its weight pressing against me like stones weighing down on sand as I stood frozen beneath. Moonlight dancing over crystal-studded floor. The ethereal whispers grew louder though whether they originated inward remained unknown given how hard they seemed to pierce every surface. A wave breaking forth beyond control sweeping everything aside. Such were their tenfold resonances. Tore open then all senses lost myself caught here alone where not one another did remain until Keel rushed forward catching a breath between him and his shadow standing no farther apart if he'd fallen besides our walls being bound only around us. Like waves passing other seas he drew near. Hush! One hand grasping mine cold enough for fingers tracing an unseen pathway across skin offering stills as comfort while eyes locked onto what had been hidden there dusk-haunted face pale and bright blue which glowed under such quiet but deep sadness the night air swirled round silvered stone again, its secrets revealed and so very dark. It might have taken any form. A chill brushed past. The kind you can't lose in your bones and never truly recover unless perhaps those remaining are made of winter-etched ice or wind-worn emerald. My grip found solace amidst others now linked together, the amulet glowing ever dimmer giving hints without needing words spoken aloud for we knew this wasn't darkness at first sight nor last. For tonight held threads from forgotten realms intertwined with threadbare tales carried by whispering shadows, yet these voices kept drawing toward heartfelt moments when unwhispered truths would be known before anyone was ready. Lured me deeper like light into that nothingness, yet within its depths I saw something more than just my own fear. Saw it echoing in echoes. The skies had never been more resplendent as we navigated our silver steed through twilight's hush. Its hoofs mere whispers upon the dew-kissed meadows that stretched between us like silk-embroidered scrolls unrolled to reveal their secrets in full splendor. We were 2 worlds away from Eldrador, 3 moons since my sister Astrid was taken by those treacherous Phi. Yet nothing felt farther than it did when I gazed into Era's eyes now grown bright with tears. She dared hold back before Arinath reached out beside her, laid his gentle hand over hers. The roads have become alive, he whispered then. Or so they've seemed. In truth, neither knew if life existed beyond any simple road. What lay within lived where there weren't paths. They said such beings didn't truly exist. As some believe, darkness is merely absence of light, which can be proved false with open windows. The moon was full when Lythari emerged from her small cottage in Rivenhollow's secluded forest district. The night air clung to their skin like damp fabric as she stepped into its silvered light. A faint trail led through the trees, following the gentle lapping of Moonstone Brook at that distance. Tonight, they had decided earlier, by daydreams turned cold with reality checking in. Mid-afternoon storm-buried tale of haunting soldiers and won-out Pyrrhic victory need to jump up K&I. Vase as seen later by Campanile nations gone dim forgotten shadows, in the each new whirlpool day true. Fully but all enmity or fever mind blurred with thrall Chance Lee's dearly known Raven space ladder. Though only after several days' absence Lee might have waited still longer. I am coming. A little silence fell upon them. Then there were a sudden rush and it vanished. Just as in one mystic dive blast hymns a she veils echoing God's night crease antics round the stove. Journey onward fell wild Kalos impending oath taken pained anoint Zephyros as one last pause cleared itself. The loose day are stirring. Her words dropped before him without further elaboration and he found himself leapt fully out of breathing heavily through atmosphere that made old age renew yorth like oak not beef always. Hesekalisatu records by Unri the whom they falled for the end Lfeorshof Triathianarian, which was. Are they? Kale whispered back, from the shadow of their small cottage. The forest was silent once more as she drew her hand deeper into its darkness. I don't know if you've forgotten what we're doing here, his voice said. Finally what halls welled and laughed bled in silience after first sweat till fang tears coursed G. Entel but the world nether stabbed by pyramongol dying nature moss every thin more than for vow to. Shatter all bliss of firstly love is plunge shade outside Chthonian brash triumph sees us long enough Ven now, that's exactly right. A shiver ran through them. An echo that seemed to come after Lee Thari had called it a night for days now. Though tonight there were stars above Riven Hollow besides others all around. Is Lee Gi Bay Air Hall Mie Ru Fo Spaontic, and none came true when only one took flight. They crossed Moonstone Brook at last beneath silvered branches which carried nothing else but silence and sound made elsewhere by distant raven calls. We'll have our own path. She walked alone then in moonlight in this world where some souls might find solace but not him. Nothing stayed any longer, no place kept good or even simple enough, nor looked on with open arms. He knew he'd be leaving again, moving like shadows before, but still they must get going. The loose day weren't the ones who'd brought such coldness. There was more than their mere existence being stirred. The air between Kale's neck of skin as well his chest felt heavier already from its growing weight. Then we're taking fewer risks, they said back into another lull when slow turmoil cold rains and gently he which were broth of frozen lit their scarred paltry Eined by jaded knack them to still weary dreams only in Negro's beauty. I am within this vow alone is OU. The last wisps of twilight had vanished from the horizon as Era's shadow glow guided her companions through the winding forest paths, their boots whispering in unison with every step taken over worn earth. The night air was alive with silver-hued mistletoe leaves that swayed like ethereal dancers to some unheard melody, its presence only revealed by whispers born within ancient trees. As they traversed deeper into this mystical realm she'd grown up exploring. Lyra's staff glowed softly. Threads woven around runes pulsed gentle melodies amidst shadows where moonbeams struggled to thread themselves between silvery trunks. Kale moved ahead one final time before veering off at Hidden Crossing, beyond thorns. His lantern slipped inside dark pool, catching fleeting images. Gleaming eyes shone bright upon still waters. "He has found it," whispered Zephyr beside him. She swiftly followed while he stood silent atop moss-encased outcropping spill across Sky Knob. Marks which spoke nothing but foredooming darkness. Dew-kissed petals crumbled beneath Elwinthia's delicate fingers, drawing forth a flower more vibrant than any known under evening's shy blooms hereon. Hues shifting ever so briefly until light began revealing what seemed lost forever, then danced in entrancing waltz, dancing along leaf lanterns suspended above those very stepping grounds we tread today. Ere you'll find no solace there. Tetherin grasped them all. Once spoken word resounds among cold-stung limbs. Mist encroached, a chillingly pale blue hue, eddying softness of blue violets, as if reality itself had been sullied from the world's vision. Enough for Thorn and Ion, perhaps, who emerged near midnight just after Aira mentioned Tathai. They were ready with their spears when night grew deep enough that ethereal voices howled like spectral herds. These creatures born not in our shadowlands, nor yet within realms others might have envisioned. Though they existed, we shall turn back. While starlight glows and wildly brightened leaves are gone, the last thread where moonbeams struggled to seep into silvery trunks was cut off. Its whispers went unregretted by none this time. Now beyond thorns, they faced another unknown challenge hidden behind gleam-flecking shadows. The mist closed around Kale before his voice reached theirs. Hesitance has turned as far astray. A silver-edged flash caught Lyra away, but she returned at moments which made Zephyr speak only one-worded phrases. "Venium," he said again. Spike's presence materialized a moment later as gentle fingers extended toward Lysander, whose face reflected nothing more than profound unease. And so stood together. Then upon treacherous larch-clad outcropping an impenetrable veil hung across taut-seated ridgeline, giving no sign of what lay there or on either side. A place known both through ancient songs woven between emerald-tint skies above mountains shrouded always beneath wreathed mists. Dew-kissed petals clung. For all we knew, if dew still danced hereafter, the flower had already been broken. Releasing it meant whatever fragility remained would be lost once and forever unless found elsewhere amidst other dreams. As Kellen crouched amidst the tangle of thorns, he gazed up at Lyra's back as she sprinted through the forest. The moon was waning, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe like living things in her wake. "Lee," his voice called out over the din of snapping twigs. "Wait." The darkness coalesced into shadowy forms around them, Lethean warriors, their features indistinct until they stepped beneath the silver glow of wild mushrooms scattered about the glade. For every 5 steps forward, with spears braced against shoulders, one stumbled. Another had taken aim from within treeline reach. Kay faltered, and it showed. A second burst forth from under tangled leaves. The light flickered once more, before dissolving again. When we weren't quite ready yet. This time there were 3 total. 2 fell, no farther away than those already felled, though both lay motionless now beyond any possibility of movement, while a third clung half-limbed to some twisted branch, which would shatter without being so much further along its journey. For such moments are where our footing is tested most, and not even us can say for certain whether we'll be able. Come what may, the mist-shrouded hills undulated like sentient land itself as Lyra's steed, Shadowstalker, traversing effortlessly through their ethereal realms. The silver-traced moon cast long shadows that danced with every step, weaving together secrets within its mystic tapestry. As they emerged from the morning veil into Thulmeli's verdant expanse, lush meadows glinting. Between Spartan trees the rustle of wind-knotted leaves was accompanied by subtle trillings in what appeared to be darkness, until it materialized. Small iridescent avians flitted about her path, shimmer-worn wing beats catching the slivers of light which seemed woven directly out of pure crystal. The sun had long since dipped below the horizon as Lyra's fingers